within a month. Huang Guofeng, with the cooperation of Ye Jianning, the head of the army, and Wang Qing, the head of the forces immediately guarding the Zhongnanhai area, they cooperated and in a very clever way arrested the Gang of Four without bloodshed that ended the threat of a quick split by the Gang of Four.
We have time for one very, very quick, only 2 questions, last 2, okay?
My questions.
What in your opinion or assessment, what is the influence of the event in Eastern Europe in 1989 influenced the crackdown on Tiananmen? Poland, Hungary, etc.
The tensions in Eastern Europe raised the tensions in China a great deal. They were really reporting daily about developments in Eastern Europe, and the fall of the Berlin Wall was extraordinary. Now, to be sure, Deng Xiaoping moved in June 4th, 1989, before some of the final denouement in Eastern Europe. And toward the end of the year, when Ceausescu was shot in the back, and Ceausescu had been one who used martial law to get order, you can imagine that that created enormous tension in Beijing. So I think Deng and many other leaders in China really were worried that China might fall. Indeed, I remember many of my colleagues in the United States hoped that Deng and communism in China would fall also. And so I think there was a lot of encouragement on the part of Voice of America and the American and other European, other Western reporters. There was considerable encouragement, hoping that communism might fall apart in China as well. There's no question that they were extremely worried, and they really felt the country was in danger of falling apart.
Okay, last question. We have to stop somehow.
Okay. I'm sorry I've been too long.
As may I have your comment about this? If Deng Xiaoping they have the transformation of China, maybe you can comment about how is Najib, the transformations of Malaysia in relation with the ethnic diversifications in Malaysia. Well, I just want to relate, if you can give your comment about the transformation done by our Prime Minister right now, Mr. Najib, in relation with the ethnic in Malaysia.
What the Prime Minister Najib now is trying to do in Malaysia.
I'm not a specialist on Malaysia, and my comments are not nearly as well informed as all of you in this room. But it's been my impression that many leaders of Malaysia, certainly Mahathir, and many leaders since Mahathir, have been trying to make basic transformations in Malaysia. And I think your Prime Minister Najib is very much of that nature. I had the pleasure of meeting him when he was Education Minister, and we were on the same radio program one time. And I was quite impressed that he was a person of deep thought and deep understanding of international developments. And it's my impression that he is trying to transform Malaysia. Deng Xiaoping deeply believed that there was no single model of what to do to transform the country. He wanted to learn from everywhere and adapt what was necessary to his own country. And I'm sure Najib is doing the same thing. He's trying to adapt various lessons of transformation to what is necessary for your country.
The last question. Paul, yeah.
Against Malaysia and other Southeast Asian countries, even after the normalization of relations.
Although Nixon visited in 1972, they did not yet normalize relations with China. It was only in the end of 1978 that the United States normalized relations with China. Some people say that when you have a huge big tanker on the ocean, it takes about 20 miles maybe to turn it around. I think a country as huge as China, where the revolution had been so deeply imprinted, and Mao's views were so deeply imprinted, that the impact of Mao, even today, is not entirely gone. I think that the old patterns of thinking, a desire of making revolution, cannot die suddenly. And I think even though Deng moved to turn the country around in the early 80s, it was not easy, and that in a country that even then had over 1 billion people, there were many spots and many branches that still kept up the desire to make revolution. I think it took him several years to get control so that the main lines of policy were to stop the encouragement of revolution abroad.
Okay, I think it's a student right at the end.
I'm a master student. I come from mainland of China. So I have 2 questions to ask you. What is the relationship between Taiwan and the mainland of China in the next 2 decades? And from America perspective, what the role it will have? Is America will help Taiwan or make a balance between the mainland of China and Taiwan? This is the first question. The second question is, right now you play the video, and the video is about the background of Deng Xiaoping. And after 1978, President Deng first time with Singapore. After that, China have a lot of economic revolution, especially in the freedom market, open the market. And so I want to ask a question about can you focus what is the direction of democracy in China? Is like Singapore model? I mean, it will like Singapore, learn Singapore model? Like that.
The first question on Taiwan. It happens that the last few days I was in Taiwan and had a chance to meet many Taiwanese leaders. One of the things that impressed me is now how close the contacts are between so many leaders in China and Taiwan, that the level of understanding and personal trust is increasing very rapidly. I met a man named Xu Lida, who is one of the key leaders. I met Fred Qian, who was formerly Tianfu, who was formerly foreign minister in Taiwan. And they are having extremely close personal contacts. I think the level of trust and contact is going up. The level of trade is going up, and exchanges, all those are increasing, and I think those are very, very healthy relationship. Even the opposition party, the DPP, now accepts those discussions. The position of the United States is that we want those relations to keep peaceful. So we are prepared to send arms so that Beijing does not force Taiwan through the use of arms. We want to avoid armed conflict between the two. I think that policy has basically been accepted, and now that there seems to be little danger that Taiwan will go independent, I think that the chances are that relations between Taiwan and mainland will continue to grow much closer, and I cannot predict that they will be unified within the next 2 or 3 decades, but I think if Deng were alive today, he would be satisfied that the long-term historical direction is correct and that the importance of maintaining good relationships with the major powers would lead him to keep the same kind of trends that we are now enjoying. On the question of process of democracy, I was particularly interested in the case of demonstrations in an area of Guangdong, the Chaozhou area, called UKM. When they had problems in UKM and a lot of local resistance, the solution was to allow voting of all elected officials. I don't think that could have happened without the approval of the General Secretary of the Guangdong Province, Wang Yang, and I don't think it could have happened without the concurrence of Beijing. So, although it's difficult to predict just what form that will take, I think that Beijing will continue to experiment with democracy around the edges. I don't expect them to lead to the same kind of democratic forms that many Western countries and many other East Asian countries have, but I do believe they will continue experiments around the edges, and that there already is a very considerable change in the openness of discussions, and I would expect that general trend to continue.
Okay, thank you.
Can that be the last question?
Okay. I'm also from mainland China. And back to my country, the public opinion about Chairman Mao is that 70% of what he has done is great, and 30% were bad. So in the same way, I want to know that how much credit do you give to Deng Xiaoping?
I would give Deng Xiaoping 80% good and 20% bad, and I would give Mao Zedong even a poorer score. I think that what he did in the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution are really horrible. And there, I would not give him such a high score as 70% good. But I think I would give Deng Xiaoping a scorecard of 80% good.
Thank you.
I must thank Professor Vogel. It has been a very interesting afternoon. I was watching Professor Shamsu to see that he concurs with me. I think he did. I think you've given us a very interesting journey through Deng Xiaoping, looking at China through Deng Xiaoping. And I do believe everyone has benefited from this. And let's give Professor Vogel our usual. Very pleasant. And still has some work with us tomorrow. So those of you who did not manage to get your questions in, Professor Vogel is going to be around this afternoon. We have a photo exhibition, and then we will have tea. And tomorrow he's still around. I think you catch him in ICMAS, am I right?
At the international office.
At the international office. So those who are really keen to have some more chat with you will be available at this time. So
well, as a token of appreciation, the floor would like to invite Professor Tan Sri to present a token of appreciation to Professor Ezra F. Vogel.
Get a nice shot.